can tell the world.
Hi, I'm Johnny. This is Johnny Likes, the show where I talk about movies that I like. Today I'm going to talk about an underrated movie from the 1980s. Today I'm going to talk about Night of the Demons.
I've heard stories about this place ever since I was a kid. The Hall family met a pretty gruesome end, didn't they?
They sure did. As a matter of fact, it was on Halloween night. One of them went crazy and slaughtered the entire family, then committed suicide. They could never figure out who did it. Too much blood and guts.
I can't believe we're gonna party here. Neither can I.
Night of the Demons is a supernatural horror movie from 1988. It was directed by Kevin Tenney, and it was written by Joe Augustin. It stars Linnea Quigley and a whole bunch of other people that I've never really heard of, and you probably haven't either. I feel bad saying this, but looking at their IMDb bios, they all kind of peaked in this movie. The basic plot of the movie is a bunch of teenagers on Halloween go to Hull House, an abandoned property where they plan on partying. Think binge drinking, awkward dancing, and pairing off and going into corners to touch each other inappropriately. They accidentally summon a demon during a seance, and it goes on to possess them one by one throughout the night. Every October, I like to celebrate Halloween by watching a scary movie a day every day. I like to call it Spooktober. The caveat being, it has to be a movie I haven't seen before. When choosing my movies for the month, I like to get a mixture of stuff that's come out recently and stuff that I recognize from wandering around movie stores when I was a kid and looking in the horror section. This is one of those movies where I immediately recognized it from the cover. I always thought it looked interesting, but I just never got around to it. It slipped through the cracks. So I thought I would give it a chance this past year, which was 2022 for anyone keeping track. I was pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed it. Now, this is unquestionably a B movie, but it is the best kind of B movie. The type where everyone involved seems to be giving their best effort, and it really shows up on the screen. It looked like the crew wasn't just there to collect a paycheck. It seemed like that they were kind of hungry and trying to prove themselves, and this was maybe their only opportunity to do so. The cinematography is thoughtful. The production design is bare bones but effective. The score is abrasive in a charmingly 8-bit type way. And the actors' performances all worked for me. This is B-movie acting, so no one's taking home an Oscar, but I definitely did notice some talent. For instance, I especially like the guy who played Stooge, the pig nose bit-wearing guy. His character was obviously supposed to be an obnoxious ass, and you weren't really supposed to like him, but I found him pretty funny, and I kind of did like him. He was a little bit endearing. He has a line that he stole from John Belushi's stand-up that is quite memorable.
Yeah, eat a bowl of fuck. I am here to party. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. It's a bit crude, but it's my style. I kind of like it. The Evil Dead films, especially the second one, seem to be the creative inspiration for this film, and that definitely works for me, as I consider the Evil Dead films kind of the pinnacle of B horror movies. And if you're going to steal from someone, you might as well steal from the best. The plot is similar. Demons possess people one by one. And they even use Raimi's kind of patented not a steadicam trick. You'd recognize it from Evil Dead, where it's where anytime something's chasing somebody through the woods. I actually think this film did it justice because it makes a little bit more sense that there'd be all these hallways and corridors for the presence to chase down and open doorways and stuff versus an abandoned cabin in like Michigan or wherever Evil Dead was shot. I'm pretty sure it's Michigan though. Could be New Jersey. I'll put a little infographic around my head to correct myself here. So there are two scenes in this film that really stuck out for me. The first scene is a sequence where a young woman is dancing in front of a fireplace. She's dancing to a song by Bauhaus called Stigmata Martyr. Yeah, she's doing an interpretive dance. Another young man watches on in bewilderment, as he's not sure if she is seducing him, if she's even aware he's there, or if she's trying to scare him. He's definitely confused. He's got the face of someone who's got a confused boner for sure. Anyway, I found this scene absolutely hypnotic and strangely powerful, especially as the song comes to a conclusion. There's lyrics in Latin, or what I assume is Latin. I don't speak Latin. It could just be gibberish. It sounds like an incantation and an evil spirit is actually being summoned. It was quite effective. The actress who did this was named Amelia Kincaid. I mentioned her earlier. She goes on to the sequels. But she, I guess, studied dance in college. It was kind of her major. And she choreographed this whole scene by herself. She pulls it off in heels, no less. I'm not sure how much of the budget went to securing the rights to the song from Bauhaus, but I'm sure it was a fair amount. They have a punk aesthetic in this film. There is lots of stickers and logos of notable punk and hardcore bands. Although the Bauhaus song is, as far as I could tell, the only one to actually appear in the movie. Everything else is done by the director's brother, who also did the score, which was simple but effective. He had been in a band years before, and these were just recordings that he had done. The second memorable scene in the movie for me involved Linnea Quigley's character. Now, if you don't know the name Linnea Quigley, she was an 80s scream queen. She's probably best known for her portrayal of Trash in Return of the Living Dead. In that movie, she has a scene in a cemetery, and that's all I really need to say. If you know, you know. If you don't, then you should probably check that out, and you'll either laugh or you'll something. Anyways, so Quigley's character is possessed, and she's getting pretty weird and obsessive with some lipstick, and she inexplicably takes the lipstick and shoves it through her nipple into her breast. It's just so gross. The effect is very well done. It swallows it up, and there's no... It's just seamless, and it makes me go like this. Makes me kind of half cover my eyes because I know it's coming, but I like a train wreck. I can't look away. This movie had a great atmosphere. It only had a budget of $1.3 million, but you can tell that all that money went straight into the effects and the production design. It's shot in a real-life, dilapidated house in Los Angeles. Everything you see, except for, I believe, like the boiler room, is all just in the house. None of it's a set. Some of the shots in this movie are wonderful. For instance, when they first enter Hull House, they are lit from the outside by what appears to be about 1,000 moons, and there is smoke for no clear reason other than it looks cool. There is another shot where a mirror has broken. You can see a bunch of the teens, and they're each in their own individual shard of the mirror. It's super cool and creative, and it's probably symbolic of something. There's another shot with Linnea Quigley just after she's been possessed, where she's holding a shard of the mirror, and half of her face is lit differently than the other half. It's moments like this that illustrate just how hard the filmmakers were trying throughout the whole movie. There's another couple just quick little things I'll mention that I thought were cool. There's a sequence near the beginning where all the teens are dancing, and it's starts out just like a standard, all right, the party's getting going, let's put on some tunes, and everyone's dancing. But then one of the girls has a strobe light, and she turns that on, and I thought it all of a sudden just elevated the tension and gave the scene a sense of danger that just wasn't there, and it was super simple and super effective. The last thing I'll mention is there is a cool little animated sequence over the opening credits, which I'd forgotten about until I rewatched the movie. It really set the tone for just how inventive and cool the rest of the film was going to be. The animation is crude, but is nevertheless a nice touch. It had nothing to do with the rest of the film, but it was still a nice, unexpected bonus. I've seen many a low-budget horror movie, and in like 80% of them, that little animated scene would have been the highlight of the movie. I guess I should mention that this is an 80s movie through and through. It's very of its time. So if you don't want 80s fashion and aesthetics, this might not be your thing. So going into this movie, my expectations were pretty low, and I found myself just constantly surprised throughout, and I was very impressed. From what I read about it, it got an extremely limited theatrical release. I think it was released in Detroit and like a couple other places, and it went on to be quite successful. It made $13 million, which was 10 times its budget. Had it gotten a proper release, it could have gone on to become one of the most successful movies of the year. Who knows, though? Now, I guess this movie has gone on to become a bit of a cult classic in the horror circles. I'm kind of surprised that I'd never heard about it before, because I try to frequent that stuff. I am a horror fan, especially of 80s stuff. Although there is so much 80s stuff, it's hard to keep up with all of it. I'm not really sure why I've never heard anyone mention this as a forgotten gem before. I don't think I've seen it on any top 10 lists, any of those type of clickbaity articles, but maybe I just glanced over it for whatever reason. So, to summarize, the atmosphere was unreal, production design was great, the effects were decent, the cinematography was inventive, and I really enjoyed the performances for what they were. I'm going to rate this a 4.25 out of 5. Now, that may seem a bit high, but it had pretty much everything I want in a B horror movie. It had gratuitous violence and nudity, had some creative camera work, some laughs, and it even had a few inventive and creepy moments. My biggest complaint overall is that it didn't go hard enough into trying to actually scare you. It was much more of a party horror movie. Like if you were to put this on at a Halloween party or to go see it at a theater for like a midnight showing with a packed crowd, that would be the ideal setting for seeing this movie. Even though I just watched it all by myself. So if you like this, you might like Evil Dead 2 or Return of the Living Dead or Night of the Creeps. None of those really have quite the same atmosphere as this. Evil Dead 2 is a bit more manic. It's overall a better movie, like no question. Return of the Living Dead has a bit of humor in it as well. I found it a little bit more mean-spirited. And Night of the Creeps is similar in that it's just a good B horror movie from the 80s that you don't hear about too often. So, what's your favorite Linnea Quigley film? What's another rarely mentioned, overlooked horror gem from the 80s? Have you guys seen the sequels or the remake? Are they worth a watch? Let me know in the comments section. And also, if you could like and subscribe, that would be super duper. It's quick, easy, and painless. Quick, easy, painless. That's the title of my sex tape. Plus, it really helps me out, the old liking and subscribing. Thanks for watching me rant about movies for a little while, and tune in next time to see what else Johnny likes.